the table Elizabeth Fox, who is a museum and historic site consultant. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for inviting me.
And we're going to talk about cocktail shakers. So how cool is that? Made in Connecticut. All right, so tell me about this. So the Depression happens. There are manufacturing companies all over the state of Connecticut, in Meriden and in Britain and Waterbury and everywhere else. Somebody starts making these. Right. Was it to reinvent?
Well, it goes back a little bit farther than that, because there had to have been a metal industry in Connecticut in order to make these Art Deco cocktail shakers. And it started in the iron industry, and then we started producing finer wares for the domestic use for homes. And Connecticut was a major manufacturer of pewter, and that's what this is.
Yeah.
It's a white metal. This is a coffee pot made in Wallingford, in the Yalesville section of Wallingford.
Important to note that.
Because it was made by Hiram Yale. He was a pewter smith who made this. So from this, there was something developed called Britannia ware, which is a silver-plated white metal. And that's really, Britannia ware then became International Silver, which was the largest producer of silver in the world.
And this was huge in the state of Connecticut.
It was huge. Domestic metalware was huge here. But what really happened is, and this is kind of fun, is that Mr. Chase, who was the president of Chase Brass and Copper Company out of Waterbury, and these were all made by the Chase Brass and Copper Company, in 1926 he went to Paris, and he went to an exhibition on, it was called Modern, Decorative, and Industrial Arts. And of course that was Art Deco. And it was his first time he saw Art Deco. Now what they were making in Waterbury at the time were plumbing fixtures.
Well, that's not very fancy.
But they were brass, and they were copper, and they could be chromed. Ah. So he saw this silver Art Deco that was being manufactured in Paris and all over France, and he came back and he started talking about this. I think we could do this. And at the same time, Prohibition in 1930, we were stops, so we were able to buy legally
and
buy
legally, and make cocktails.
And make cocktails and have fun. So he was making a few of these non-cocktail shaker items a little bit before that. He started in 1932, but in 1933 he had really jumped in to making what I would call entertainment wear. So at the same time we have the Depression, and the upper middle class and some of the middle class had servants before then, people who cooked for them, cleaned for them. If they had a dinner party, they served everything. That was disappearing, and what was replacing it was the buffet table and the cocktail party.
Wow.
So Chase jumped into that and started producing things for the buffet table, chafing dishes, as well as cocktail shakers. And soon thereafter, a number of companies started also doing the same thing. Manning and Bowman was a big one that was out of Meriden, and it just, and as you can see in the article, if you'd like to read it, in Connecticut Explored.
In Connecticut Explored, and
magazine.
If you don't get this magazine, this is a plug for it. It's awesome. It's all about Connecticut and history. Now, is this an ice?
It's a candy dish.
It's a candy dish. Right.
But you could use it for anything. They show it actually on desks. They show it on dressers, being multi-use for it.
It's beautiful.
Glass lined.
And this bell.
And this bell. If you did have your servant,
or
your youngest or oldest daughter or somebody, you would ring them.
Is this a Bakelite?
So, it is.
Yeah.
It's a plastic handle. These were made to look like ivory, imitate ivory and other more expensive goods, and then later, as you can see from these
now,
pieces,
these were not made in Connecticut,
that's
but
right.
It's indicative of this era. And so you make the cocktail, right?
Right.
It's like
and
this.
see, if you look inside, you have a built-in strainer in yours.
Yes.
Little holes that are in there.
And then what you do is, after you serve the cocktail, this comes off, and you pour it in your martini glass, or your coupe, or whatever it is that you're drinking out of.
And there were whole sets of these.
With
so
glasses.
Would you have a tray and glasses, and some of them came with a strainer in case your cocktail shaker did not have a strainer. You would have a strainer that you would pour it through.
Now, these are not real expensive these days.
No.
You can buy them for $30 or $40.
I bought this at $30 Brimfield this year.
And I said to you, who doesn't love Brimfield
That's right.
in Massachusetts?
That's right. So, and the same thing with the other things from Chase. I mean, they're very reasonable.
But stylish. We
Very
don't have this
stylish,
kind of style anymore.
No. I mean, Waterbury was really pretty hip when they were making this stuff.
And you can find these in different parts all over the state.
Oh, yes.
So where can we go to view these if we want to see a whole collection?
If you want to see them in museums, here in New Haven, the Yale University Art Gallery, in their American section, they have, I believe they still have this on view with the whole set that's illustrated in the magazine. The Matatuck Museum in Waterbury has a large collection of Chase, since it was made there, on view, including this cocktail shaker. The Museum of Connecticut History, which is in the State Library, often has pieces out.
In New Britain, too, as well?
The New Britain Industrial Museum has cocktail shakers. So they're here and there because Meriden Historical Society has quite a number of theirs on view at the Andrews Homestead. Because they were made all over the state, you're going to find them in museums.
Well, I just thought it was fascinating that, you know, we brought this to America because we had the manufacturing places here. We have a couple of pictures that I want to show of some other cocktail shakers as well that are made in Connecticut. Now, this is copper and pewter, or am I
Copper
wrong?
and hammered white metal.
Okay.
So,
and who made
and
these?
that's just to we selected those to show the various materials that were made, that these things were made in. The one on the left was made in Middletown, and then the one on the right was made in Meriden. And they often came as a set, and you can see they had sometimes up to 8 glasses would come with them, or cups.
And what's neat about this is once you poured the cold drink in the glass, it stayed cold.
That's right.
Which is very smart.
For metals, yeah.
All right, let's take a look at some other ones that we have. Are those called bullet shakers? What are those called? Do you know?
I think that's a dealer's term for them.
Okay.
I mean, at the time, they had really funny names for them. The one on the right, which is made of aluminum, was called the Aristocrat. You know, this was called the Gaiety. So they had these really marketing names that they applied to them. So the one on the far right and the one in the center are aluminum. One in the center was made by Thermos, and Thermos was located till the 1990s in Norwich, Connecticut. And of course, it was perfect for them to make this sort of thing because they were already geared toward making the insulated thermoses so they could.
And I had no idea
to that.
that Connecticut was home to Thermos.
Oh, they made great ice buckets too.
Yeah, who doesn't know about that? All right.
And then on the far left is one made in Middletown, Connecticut.
All very chic, I think. Back in the day, was it just the wealthy that had these, or could anybody afford them back then?
They were not. I would say the middle class and the wealthy.
I see.
I mean, we look at the prices now. This originally sold in 1933 for $8.50, which was quite a bit of money then.
Okay. Now this one, what does that mean?
This is one of my favorites. This was made by International Silver. It is not chrome, it's sterling silver, and it has a not precious stone, but the shape of it is absolutely stunning. And it was this came out of that pewter industry. This is the company that went from pewter to becoming Meriden Britannia. Then Meriden Britannia started buying all the smaller silver companies in the state to form eventually International Silver. So by the time this was made, this was a real huge conglomerate of different companies.
What is the green colored? Is it a jadeite kind of thing?
I'm going to have to look it up real fast.
Well, that's fine. And as I'm looking at this, it does look really, really pretty. What would that cost now if you found one on the
This would be really at the high end of the market. This,
so $100?
It is in a private collection right now. Oh no, this would be probably $2,000.
$2,000.
Yeah, because it's really at the high end of the style. It was made
locally, obviously.
I was trying to find your material here. I thought I had it in here.
Well, as we look at that, I also want to show the final picture, and that is
the one thing that's kind of interesting. If we can go back to that, I should mention that this was something that International Silver made for a very short period of time. This has a coating on it so that the silver would not tarnish.
So you didn't have to shine it.
you know, like the chrome. You didn't have to polish it. So if you didn't have the help and you wanted to have something that was silver, this was available to you as well.
That's really stunning. And sometimes we see the penguin shakers too, which I see in stores, so those are cute. So the final picture is an ad.
That's right. And it's an ad for the Chase Brass and Copper Company. This ad was placed in House and Gardens and Home Beautiful, that sort of magazine. And it was promoting the buffet party. And you see here on the table, she set out everything. And everything on that table that you see, except for the flatware, was made by Chase Brass and Copper Company. And if you look closely in the back, there's a blonde woman with a green dress. She is actually pouring the cocktail from this cocktail shaker.
Of course she is.
And the woman in the far right, closest right to you.
In the cranberry dress.
In the cranberry dress. She's holding a plate. And that plate has kind of a fan handle, and in the middle of the plate there's a cup holder. And they promoted that you could have your canopy, your cocktail, and still be able to smoke your cigarette, all at the same time.
That must be 1950s.
That's right.
Absolutely. Yeah. Getting back to this magazine, Connecticut Explored.
Sure.
Now, this is a beautiful magazine if you haven't seen it. Lots and lots of writers and pictures and all kinds of stuff. And of course, this caught my eye were the cocktail shakers. But they're going to celebrate 15 years.
That's right.
They are celebrating 15 years.
That's right, next month.
What keeps this magazine going? I mean, who's the reader? Anybody, I suppose.
I think it pretty much is everybody. It's, you know, it started off being the Hog River Journal. That's what its name was at the beginning. And they really concentrated on Hartford, in the center of Hartford. But quickly they expanded and expanded as their readership expanded, and now they cover all of the state. And they have a website, it's ctexplored.org. And you can find out if you want a subscription to it. I think it's $24 for 4 issues a year. The current issue, which is this one, is about breaking barriers, everything from the Muppets,
right,
to you know, the early art scene. And then the issue that will come out in February is all about love, and then small print and hate. And there'll be some fun articles in there. I just completed one of the articles, which is on intimate apparel in Connecticut, which goes from knitted underwear to corsets. Interesting, corsets was a huge industry. You know, here we have Strauss-Adler, which is now apartments.
In New Haven.
Right across the street from you, practically. And Bridgeport was Warner. And 1890, Connecticut supplied 90% of the corsets worn in this country.
In America.
In America.
Well, that's a whole nother show.
Here. That's right.
We may have to have you back.
Love and hate.
What is it that you love about writing about history so much? As a kid, did you love history?
I hated history.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. I think it was the way it was taught then. Now we have, I think, especially in Connecticut with the new social studies benchmarks that are being taught, it kind of brings it home to you rather than dates and names you never remember. It's more about stories and storytelling, and I think that's what I enjoy, is the storytelling.
Well, you're very good at it. Elizabeth Fox, thank you so much for coming on and talking about cocktail shakers, and that February issue sounds really
corsets
interesting,
and all sorts of other
corsets.
good things.
So thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
Spend all night kissing, and if Walter's right here, then who else is missing? Got a little sidetracked, if I'm a wishing, I found the keys to the door, but it's also a metaphor. Need to keep locked in the grocery store, but mine just to save time. I'll skip right ahead to the last ride.